I'm Farooq Saber. I'm an AIML Specialist Solutions Architect at AWS. And this is AIM301 RStudio on Amazon SageMaker. Okay. So how many of you have actively worked in R and used RStudio? Just a raise of hand here. Okay. Okay, a few people here. That's nice. So we know that R is one of the most popular data analytics, machine learning, data science, simulation languages that has been around for over a couple of decades now. And it has been one of the languages of choice for data scientists and machine learning engineers and statisticians because of its ease of use and power to do data crunching and manipulation very quickly and in a much easier fashion. So one of the most common or most popular IDEs that has been used for running R code has been RStudio. It has been around for many years and it runs R very well. And we know that there are over 18,000 packages, R packages that data scientists like to use. And these are, most of them are open source packages. So there is a free version of RStudio as well, but there are enterprise versions too. And if you have an organization or enterprise and you want to run the enterprise version of RStudio or RStudio Workbench, then it is quite tiring and cumbersome to have to build the RStudio image, to maintain and manage it and keep it updated and to scale up resources when needed. So keeping that in mind, we at AWS, we came up with a fully managed RStudio offering with RStudio PBC a few months ago that utilizes, runs on top of SageMaker and utilizes all the nice features of SageMaker, such as SageMaker processing, model training, model deployment, and several other features as well. Okay. So this is the agenda for our talk today. It's supposed to be an interactive session, so please feel free to ask questions. Just raise your hand when you have a question so that we can get the mic to you and have your question addressed. So these are the three subtopics that we are going to cover today. We are going to talk about RStudio, that we develop ML and analytics solutions or solve data science problems and use cases in R using RStudio. What are the challenges of using RStudio in an enterprise setting? And what is RStudio on Amazon SageMaker? And we will have a brief demo in which I'm going to show what basically how RStudio looks like on SageMaker, which it exactly looks like how we use the open source version of it, and also just a little more components of how to set up RStudio and how to access it. Okay, so this is the RStudio that we have all been used to. Okay, so we use RStudio to run R code, and it has this very nice interface. This image on the left that shows how RStudio looks like. We have a nice code block here at the top left. At the bottom left, we have a console where you can type commands on the fly. If you have, for example, executed the code in the code block and you want to further do some analysis, you can type it down there in the console and do that analysis and run that code as well. On the right-hand side, we have several options at the top. This one is showing variable view, where you can click on those variables there, for example, breast cancer, DF, and DF test, and it will show up in a window next to the code to see how to do. If you want to eyeball or look at the data frame, then you can do it very easily that way. And at the bottom right, also we have several options available, such as we can look at our directory structure and files, what are the packages, help, and also when we do some plots, it also shows up on on the bottom right. Okay, so this is how RStudio looks like, the open source version, and this is also actually showing the SageMaker version of RStudio, how it looks like on SageMaker, exactly like the open source version. Okay. And on the right, at the back, we have RStudio package manager, where you can decide on which repository you're going to use for RStudio in the enterprise version. If you want to freeze and pick up your repository from a particular date, you can also do that. You can have your enterprise custom packages if you want to block or allow access, or if you have your own libraries and packages that you want to use in RStudio, then you can build those and also access them using package manager. And the third figure that's shown here, that's using Shiny to build an app in R and then in RStudio and publish it. So these are some of the components of RStudio enterprise version, and also in RStudio on SageMaker. Okay, so when we have RStudio running on scale, or if you want to run it on scale in an enterprise setting, there are certain challenges that are involved with it. First of all, our admin, we have to take care of the cluster, we have to manage the cluster, we have to right size the resources. For example, what type of compute we want to offer our data scientists. Is it an instance with many CPUs, with large amount of memory, for example, and whether we want to, and when we want to change it to have a better server available. So all these management, server management and cluster management issues that we have to take care of, the admin has to take care of in an enterprise setting. That makes the management and management component of RStudio enterprise quite on the enterprise setting quite cumbersome and tiring. Also, we have to take care of authenticating users who has access to RStudio and who doesn't. We have to take care of security protocols, whether if our RStudio offering, enterprise offering it complies to the industry security standards. And also, we want to make sure that we have a full trail of what's happening, who is logging into RStudio from our organization and what we are doing. So we have to keep that. If something goes wrong, if there is an audit, then we want to monitor and keep track of these things as well. Okay. So how does SageMaker, RStudio on SageMaker helps with these issues? So as I mentioned, that we started offering RStudio on SageMaker a few months ago. It was, I think, end of October last year, where we are offering along with collaboration with RStudio PBC and fully managed RStudio enterprise offering on the cloud, and it is one of the first ones to do that. So a few features of RStudio on SageMaker are, it offers the enterprise or the organization a fully managed experience. So the admins or the enterprise, they don't have to worry about managing resources, for example, and managing cloud resources and servers, for example. They don't have to worry about doing right-sizing the compute, for example. So there are several instances or servers that are available that you can, data scientists can run their session, RStudio session on, and they can change it on the fly as well. Start a new session, and the directories and files which are there in the other session will be accessible to the new one as well. So if as a data scientist we are feeling that there is a need for a larger compute instance, need for more memory. If our data set is larger, for example, then we can switch to a larger instance and then run our code on that. So the admin does not have to worry about it. They don't have to provision several instances at the same time. They don't have to keep up to date with the industry, what's happening in the industry with coming up with new compute resources, for example. So it is scalable. You can easily scale your resources, as I mentioned, and also it unifies teams. By that I mean that if you have some data scientists, like some of us we want to work in R, some of us we want to work in Python, right? So if we are, as we know that on SageMaker, when we are training our code, it is on the data is on S3. And also there is a EFS volume attached with our SageMaker. So same EFS volume is attached to our RStudio as well as SageMaker Studio. So if we have our code in our in our studio, then we can also access it in SageMaker Studio as well. And also, for example, our code, if you are using code commit, again, there can be some people working on R code, some working on Python code, so all that can be made, that all will be accessible in code commit as well, that you can access using RStudio, or you can connect to it or using SageMaker Studio, for example. Okay, so that's how it unifies teams. People working in R and Python, they can work together. If you like to work in R and your peer wants to work in Python, they can develop code and they can collaborate in this fashion as well. So as I mentioned that RStudio on SageMaker, it's a familiar IDE, just looks like the RStudio Workbench, the enterprise version, as well as the RStudio open source version that we are used to. And you can quickly lift and shift if you have a license for RStudio Enterprise. You can bring that license in AWS, and once that license is in there, then you can create a SageMaker domain with RStudio enabled in it, and then you can go on in SageMaker domain. I will show how to do that in the demo, and you can access RStudio from there. Okay, so RStudio on SageMaker is a fully managed experience. It uses several components of the AWS ecosystem. It integrates with License Manager, the AWS License Manager, where you have your enterprise licenses. So as I said that you can, if you already have an existing license for RStudio Enterprise, you can bring it and into using AWS License Manager, and then the option of using RStudio is going to appear in SageMaker domain. Okay. So RStudio provisioning using AWS CloudFormation. So you can, once you have brought your license in and you're building your SageMaker domain for the first time, or building a new domain, then it uses the CloudFormation code as infrastructure best practices to build your domain and have your RStudio IDE developed and available, fully managed by AWS in your SageMaker domain. You can also have a private VPC and access and enable RStudio access for that, for security reasons if you want to. And since RStudio, just like SageMaker Studio, it uses the Amazon AWS volume to store your code and data, and which is shared between RStudio on SageMaker as well as SageMaker Studio. So once again, the folder that you make, the code that you put in RStudio on SageMaker is going to appear in SageMaker Studio as well. So if you have some R or Python code in RStudio, it is going to be there, accessible through SageMaker Studio as well. RStudio also has encryption in REST. So you can bring your own KMS keys, or you can have AWS managed keys for for encryption. For authorization and permission, it uses, you can use AWS single sign-on or identity and access management. And whatever you are doing in RStudio and SageMaker, you're building model, you are running your SageMaker processing jobs, for example. So all those, the output of your code and your metrics, if you are outputting those, they will appear in Amazon CloudWatch as well for you to access and see what is happening with your code, for example. Okay, so to recap, what is the advantage of using RStudio on SageMaker? Yeah. We know that when we are coding in Python in SageMaker, we have access to tools such as SageMaker processing, for example, right? So where you run your data crunching jobs, your feature engineering jobs on these temporary instances, which are started when your processing job starts, and then they crunch your numbers, they build your features, do data processing, and those instances or servers then shut down when your jobs are done, and you get the results back. If you specified an S3 location, those results are written there so that you can use them for further analysis or model training, for example, if you want to. Right? So same thing with RStudio on SageMaker. So there are API calls in R that you can use to access SageMaker processing, start those distributed processing jobs, number crunching, and feature engineering jobs using containers, built-in containers to carry out those jobs, and then get the results back and do further analysis. Or for example, if you want to, some people, some data scientists, they'll want to do feature engineering or number crunching in R, and they want to run the models in Python, for example, right? So they can do that processing using R code because they're very familiar with that syntax, and those results are written in S3, and then you can go to Python, access that data easily, and build your models to access those processed features and engineers to build your model there. But in addition to processing, SageMaker training, right? We just like processing in training, we have built-in containers as well. We can bring in our own scripts and our own models as well in SageMaker in Python to do model training in a distributed fashion. Similarly, we can do in RStudio on SageMaker as well. So we can use those built-in models. We can bring on our models and then train using that in a distributed fashion. Again, those temporary instances which carry out model training, and once that training is done, those instances are destroyed or shut down, and you get that data or artifacts in the location that you have specified. Yeah. And also, we know that using SageMaker, once we have done with processing and with model training, so what's next? We want to do inference, right? We want to, for example, deploy a model using SageMaker as an endpoint. So you can do using that RStudio as well, using, for example, Plumber and some other packages. You can also deploy models using or hosting and inference using RStudio on SageMaker. Okay. Any question? Yeah. If you can talk in the mic, please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Solomon. I think I'm not clear totally about the interface integration between RStudio and SageMaker, and is it still staying separate and then you're just doing calls? Like I'm making a data set with SageMaker, putting it somewhere, and then RStudio's grabbing it, or is there actually an interface with them together, a merged interface or unified? Can you?
Yeah, so I'll show it how it's done. So when we go into SageMaker, domain, there is an option of running SageMaker Studio, for example, right? Or starting a notebook instance. Similarly, if you have the license configured, another option to run RStudio will come in. And that will open a completely separate IDE, different from the SageMaker Studio IDE that we are used to. So now, to answer your question that what is the interface between them, right? So so there is some data in S3 which you can access from RStudio as well as SageMaker Studio, right? You can access from those, so you can do number crunching or build do processing or model training on both, right? You can do it on RStudio using R code, or you can do it on SageMaker Studio as well. Now if you're in your own account and in your domain, that directory that is associated with SageMaker Studio, for example, the EFS, the file system, that has your code and the data that you pull in for example, in your session, right? So that code that's in there, that will be available in RStudio as well if you want to use. Or similarly, that code that's in RStudio and you have a directory in EFS code sitting there, that will be available in SageMaker Studio as well. So that's how you can interface. So you don't have to, for example, run your code, write your script, and then upload it somewhere else, download it, and then upload it, and then go to SageMaker Studio and then upload it again, right? No, the code that you've created here, it will be available in SageMaker Studio as well. Okay. Sure. Okay, can we please switch to the demo? Right. Okay, so I will go through a brief demo, and if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Okay, so the first thing that we do if we want to run RStudio on SageMaker is we need to have an enterprise RStudio license. So once we have that license, if we have an existing license, we can bring that as well. Then we go into AWS console that is shown here, and then we go to license manager, and that license, once we have added it there, so I have that license already added, so it is going to appear here, for example, right? So I will go to the granted licenses, and this license is going to appear here, and it will show the status and when it is going to expire, for example, right? So this will all be available in your license manager once you have your admin has added the license through that. So now once your license is there in the license manager, now what you need to do is you need to go in SageMaker and create a SageMaker domain. So right now you have to create a new SageMaker domain to enable RStudio. Okay, if you already have an existing SageMaker domain, RStudio is not going to appear in that. You will need to create a new SageMaker domain. So in this region here that I have Northern California. So once you have enabled your entered your license in there, RStudio, you can configure RStudio in any of the AWS regions. Okay, so in which it is available. So in this region in Northern California, my account doesn't have RStudio, so I'm going to create a new SageMaker domain. And previously we used to have this quick setup only for enabling various components of SageMaker, but now we have this standard setup. And if you see the difference, in addition to a few other things, we also have this SageMaker Studio and RStudio integration option here as well. So we are going to click that, and then we are going to do configure. And here we can pick what authentication method we want, what type of network we want, for example, for our VPC. And then we can click next, and it is going to configure our domain with RStudio enabled. So once I have that, so in this region, I'm going to show, because it's going to take a little bit to configure that domain once I do, but I already have it configured in this Oregon region. Okay. So here, let's say we have created our domain in SageMaker. So now we go to that domain, and we will add a user like we already do. In this case, we already have a user, and this user, if you click on launch app, so previously we would only see Studio, which is SageMaker Studio, and Canvas, right? But now once you have the RStudio license added, and you have created your domain with RStudio enabled in there, then this RStudio option is going to appear as well. Okay? And then you click on this RStudio option here, and it is going to come up with the sessions that you are running for RStudio. So I have these 2 sessions running, but if you want to create a new session, you're going to go here, you're going to name the session, and then from here you are going to pick the different instance types that are available. Okay, so this is what I was mentioning about the scale, right? How you can quickly scale with RStudio on SageMaker, the compute resources. If you see that the number crunching that you are doing in your RStudio, it's you need a bigger instance, then you can do it quickly from here. And this is all fully managed by AWS, so your admin does not have to worry about keeping up with the compute resources. Okay, so you can click any instance from here, and then you can start the session, and a new RStudio session is going to start. Okay, and here it is also going to show up what images or what versions of R we have available, and we can have multiple, and we can then pick from those ones as well. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah, if you can please bring the mic. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, the EMR could be connected on here, like RStudio part.
So what you can do is you can run EMR. Like, can you specify a little bit more on the use case?
Yeah.
Can you specify a little bit more?
Yeah, just like a Jupyter the SageMaker notebook. So can we use Spark on here with a SageMaker options, like specifying the clusters?
Over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now we have the SageMaker option only, but I can look into it. So if you give me your contact afterwards, and I can get back to you if that's something that's going to happen or not. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, so once we have the RStudio session, then we can click on that, and an RStudio session is going to start. And this is going to open up when we click on that RStudio session. So we can see that there is code here, like our RStudio IDE that we are used to. We can have the markdown code or R code, for R script, for example. We have the terminal here where we can run our analysis and commands as well. We have our various variables here. And here is that file structure, that the directories that I was talking about. So this directory that you're seeing here, the RStudio and SageMaker workshop, it is a publicly available GitHub repository that you can download and play with it in RStudio on SageMaker. And this code is going to appear in SageMaker Studio as well. We can access it from there too, and we can look at plots folder if we have any plots, and so on. Okay, and we can go in here and look at our repository. So right now it's connected to the comprehensive R archive network for our packages and libraries, but we can have our own custom libraries, our own custom repositories here as well, if we want, and then we can access that in here, and then it will install from that repository only. Okay. Okay, so this is an example that we have in that workshop that's available. So this particular example, I am not going to go through the code here, but to give you an idea. So this is the markdown code here, but you can have R script too. So what this code is doing is it is solving or running a prediction problem on synthetic data for customer churn in telecommunication industry. That whether given certain features like customer service calls, region, number of international calls, plan types, all those features, whether a telco customer for this organization is going to churn or not. So that's the problem it is trying to solve. So we can see that we are using all the packages in different packages in R that we are used to, for example, dplyr, ggplot2, and tidyverse, and some other like Carrot and other packages as well. So this code is run here, and if we can knit the code as well to get a nice web built web page kind of output here. So that's what I have done in here, where it is showing that we have it's showing the data, the head of the data, a few columns, as well as it is doing some some number crunching here. It is first changing the feature types, doing some string processing. It is doing some exploratory analysis like plotting a histogram, for example, or in this case, this is the histogram for whether the customer is going to churn or not as a function of whether they have international calling plan or not. Again, this is the histogram independently for customers who have churned or not as a function of customer service calls. Then we go in there and we do some data processing using the libraries that we are used to, such as dplyr and some other libraries to do things such as changing the variable types, changing or introducing dummy variables, doing one-hot encoding. So all these things we are doing here in the code. And then finally, after that we have the data. We are creating test and validation and training data sets here, uploading the data in S3 using our syntax, just like we are used to doing in SageMaker using Python syntax. So here we are using our syntax to upload the data in S3 and getting the our favorite XGBoost container or image from built-in SageMaker algorithms, and using that to actually train the model. Okay, create an estimator, SageMaker estimator, specify this instance type on which we are going to train. So if our model supports distributed training, then we can have multiple instances here for training. These are those temporary instances which are going to spin up, run your training job in a distributed fashion if the algorithm supports, and then they are shut down automatically, so that you do not incur additional cost for those instances. Okay. So this, just like the Python version, we call the fit version here, but using the R syntax, and it is going to start the training job, and we will get the model artifacts, and finally we deploy the model, and we do some inference on it and compute the confusion matrix and some other metrics like sensitivity, specificity on this synthetic data, and we plot our ROC curve. So the purpose of showing this is, so I've also done all this here in RStudio too, running cell by cell. You can run the script as well. You can run all the cells as well at the same time, just like we are used to with RStudio. Okay, so here now the data scientists and statisticians have the option of using all the cool features of R. If they're used to RStudio, so they can use it using the additional capabilities such as processing and distributed training and some other features of SageMaker by just using R syntax in this RStudio environment that they are familiar with. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Can you switch back to the slides, please? Okay, so how do we get started on RStudio, on SageMaker, and generally with SageMaker and machine learning on AWS as well? So we have various tutorials and examples out there. We have several GitHub repositories for carrying out, for learning, for enabling our customers to learn machine learning on AWS. We have several hands-on workshops. They handle specific features of SageMaker and RStudio on SageMaker, as well as they handle specific use cases, such as if you have any use case like computer vision, for example, object detection, right? If you have an NLP use case, sentiment analysis, for example, or tabular data use case, or any other type of some other use cases. So we have examples of those use cases on synthetic data or publicly available data in those workshops and publicly available GitHub repositories that you can get access to, and you can do self-learning there as well. Okay, we have hands-on workshops as well that we offer. Again, those workshops can be self-paced, or we can have an instructor go through those workshops. They are a few hours workshops, ranging from a few hours to multiple days workshops as well, depending on what you want to do and how deep you want to go. So we also have a skill builder program where we have up to close to 500 courses available online that you can 500 courses that you can go through, learning various aspects of AWS and how to do different things on AWS. We also have competency partners available that can help you get started on SageMaker and also in RStudio on SageMaker. For building POCs, you can work with us. You can work with our professional services organization as well to get help with building POCs as well as production workloads. Okay. So there are several ways in which we can help you solve your machine learning problems using AWS, the tools provided by AWS, for example, SageMaker and RStudio on SageMaker. Okay. You can also go through various AWS certifications. There is a machine learning AWS certification as well that you can go through. It goes through or teaches various components of SageMaker as well as some of the AI services, fully managed AI services for solving different machine learning problems. Okay, so that's all I had to talk about today. So now we can open up the floor for a question and answer. If you have any questions or if you want to look at something, yeah.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So I can do SageMaker calls from the RStudio interface. So if I have an employee that they can just access the RStudio interface and just start doing what they want to do, and all their work can just stay in that interface.
Yeah, so if you have an RStudio enterprise license, right? So then in your domain, you can enable that. You have to build a new domain. And then the RStudio is enabled, right? So now your employee can go in RStudio, they can write R code, and they can do that. They can call, for example, there was a call in that code for training, like the fit method, right? In Python code on SageMaker and SageMaker Studio, we call a similar fit method, right, from the SageMaker estimator to train our model. So similarly, using the R syntax, we have those API calls now that you can call to run those fit methods. Similarly with SageMaker processing also, so you can do processing that way as well. So you'll do in R code, you can do those syntax. There are a few limitations, but for example, SageMaker Studio has this data wrangler, right, that you can do.
That's specifically what I was wondering about. Yeah,
no code, but that's not available in RStudio right now, right? So data wrangler, because RStudio is a completely different IDE. We have built it with RStudio PBC, and it is that IDE, right? So the way that it looks like is exactly what RStudio PBC has built here. Okay, so but SageMaker Studio has other components like data wrangler. So let's say you do some number crunching in or some feature engineering in data wrangler, right? So now you have written those features in S3. Okay, so they're sitting in an S3 bucket. So now you can go in R and train your model, read those features there. Using RStudio and train your model using R, for example, right? So that's, yeah, you can do that.
So in the case with Data Wrangler, so the use case would be there's people using Data Wrangler, organizing features, then there's guys using RStudio, more the data scientists versus like the data engineers. And I have like business guys that want to do both, and they need to talk to each other. And I was hoping I could just have one place that they could be going to, and that would be the RStudio. But it sounds like I'm still going to have guys dealing with the data wrangler and building stuff. Then they're going to output that data set to S3 somewhere. Then RStudio will just go grab it. And that's kind of how the operation will have to go.
Yeah, if they are specifically using data wrangler and they want to continue using that, then yeah, that's a use case, one of the use cases you can do that. But if you're doing those feature engineering job in that you're doing in data wrangler, you can also do using SageMaker processing, right? So then you can write it in R and that code in R and do processing there. So multiple ways of doing the same thing. But if like you said, one use case can be, hey, I want to do very quick no code kind of data engineering using data wrangler. So I've done it. Now the data is in S3 now, but I like to use R for model training, or I want to do additional features, use additional features of R, right? Like dplyr does some things very quickly. So I can use that on that data set that's been processed and then do further processing and do model training.
It was mainly for the visualization and reporting framework that RStudio has and R has.
Yeah.
That they kind of like. So I was trying to.
Yeah. So it is up to you. It's up to the data scientists. This just gives an additional tool in your arsenal of tools to handle stuff, because I myself came from R background, then I moved to Python, so I like to use both R for some stuff and Python for some other stuff. I find it very convenient that now I can access the data and code and very quickly do it in one in the SageMaker domain itself. Sure. Welcome.
So question about the licensing. So I know with RStudio, usually you claim named developer licenses. So is it the same where you have to have a certain number of developer licenses when you bring your license over?
So for RStudio, so there's actually a slide about this pricing and licensing. I don't think it is showing here, but so the RStudio Enterprise license, there are multiple options. So you can, I think, if I don't remember exactly, but I can get you details on that. But I think it comes with licenses for 20 data scientists, and then there's special pricing available if you want to go more. And then RStudio Compute Resources, it comes with the free tier of 2 months with T3 medium type instance. So that's up to 2 months for a free tier, a few hours of compute there. And then if you want to pick another instance type to do your to run your session on it, then you'll have that's additional for that. But yeah, to answer your question, that there are multiple options. For enterprise licensing, yeah. Any other question? Okay, then. Thank you very much.